Here we go. So this is a little bit of an outline as to what we're going to try and cover today in a very short space of time. So we're going to try and keep our chit-chat to a sort of a, nice succinct level. But first of all, we're going to look at our older beginners and how we can introduce improvisation to those beginners. We use the Play a Story program, which sometimes people think Play a Story, or maybe that's just for young beginners, but in actual fact we can use it for older beginners. It's incredibly effective, especially with the aspect of the movies and bringing in creating music to play along to movies. So we'll start with the older beginners, and then we're going to move through to our experienced players, so students that we've had for a while. And then we're going to talk about whether or how comfortable we feel about teaching improvisation beyond our own skills and our own comfort level. So that'll be an interesting one to delve into and kind of pull apart a little bit. Also, the InnerMusician resources. We've got some new stuff we're developing at the moment, so we might have a little look at that as well. So let's start. Let's talk about, first of all, our older beginners. So I would love you to come in and chat with me. We've got Shamara, yay, hey girl, Sandy, woohoo, Heather, hey, Juliana, fantastic, from Texas, oh my girl. I hope that everything's good for where you are in that little corner of the planet. We're all thinking of you and praying for you. Kate, g'day girl. Kurt, hey, fantastic, from Michigan. Teresa, Ohio. Arini, hi there. Welcome everyone. This is really cool. I'm just so glad that you've jumped in there. Hey Dale, just jumped on. We just had a chat a week ago, I think. That's awesome. Love to see you here. All right, and again, you guys know how to jump in and put your little face up there. You've got to come and join me live. That'd be awesome.
Request to speak.
And, oh yeah, Tim's just saying, request to speak. All you have to do is hit that little high five button. Yay, just go bam. And make sure that when you do, you've got headphones on so that we don't get feedback, because that's really important. Let's just jump straight in, you guys. This is pretty fun. All right, so let's have a look at our first topic, which is our older beginners, and let's break this down a little bit. All right, so first of all, the big question that's been around for years now, since we released our program, is do I use the movie or do I use the story? So for those of you who are new to our program, everything that we improvise within the realm of playing along to a story or a movie. So the story is the way that life progresses along in each of the scenes. And so there's a story being read, and I do find that my little kids love the stories. But having said that, I also find that my older students, even my teenagers, my older adults, and my beautiful elderly students particularly love the story. We never really grow up out of stories, right? However, not all of them find that totally stimulating, so that's why we then created the movie scene that goes alongside the story. So in a sense, the story tells the details and puts everything in a very full context, and the movies take the scenes, the background, and creates the environment for the scene or the environment for the story. So there's no story attached to it. But I find that now that we've combined all of that, so we don't now have two programs, we've just put it all together and just gone, hey guys, have it all, it's awesome. And it means now students can choose. Like, why should we dictate whether they're going to use the story or the movie? Be surprised and allow your students to really enjoy that space of choosing their own journey, deciding what works for them. So let's keep going through and have a look at the other resources that we have in our journey, which is observing, the demos. So for older beginners, you know what? They're going to find, if they're still learning how to put chords together, they're still learning how to put harmonies and notes together, they're going to really benefit from just observing the easy and the basic demos. As we've always said, you know, this is just a really good place to go home, bring your teacher home, or bring a musician home and show me what you do, so that our students can get a really good idea of what's going on. Let's jump into duets. Oh my goodness. Now this is huge. So we're going to talk now about playing with flow, and particularly for our older beginners, this is a big thing because they're so busy looking for notes and finding their positions. We want to get them to move to a point at which they can really flow along. And of course, they will borrow our confidence in order to do that. The best way we can do that is to duet with them. It's quite magical what happens there. We're going to also talk about who's leading this duet. Is it the student that's leading or the teacher that's leading? And is there anything particular that we need to know about when we change that lead up? So what I've done, because I really want to be able to play the piano for you, and sometimes on these webinars, Signal just breaks it up a little bit, and I want to make sure that we get I guess that I give myself an opportunity to really show you on the piano what we can do to teach ourselves as teachers how to duet, and also to talk a little bit about what the experience is like with a student. Now, I don't have a student during these demos, but I'm using our demonstration videos because that's what makes really good training for you guys. So let's get straight into that. Let's have a look at the first video, which is duets and developing the flow. And this one just goes for a few minutes, so jump in while it's playing, ask questions, we'll see how we go. Okay, so here we're talking about playing duets with your students. This is something that I do all the time now. In fact, I've installed 2 duet stools at my piano here, so they are always sitting here, and I do all my work off my computer right there, so I'm just in reach of the piano the whole time. Boy, it's made a big difference, because now my most natural inclination is to just play along with my students. So I wanted to just give you a little feel of what it's like to play as a duet for any students, in actual fact, younger beginners, older beginners, advanced students, anybody. What it does is it just really instills a fantastic sense of rhythm without using a metronome as such, because a metronome is so mechanical. We want to learn how to play sympathetically with other musicians, and that trains our own rhythmic sense from inside, but our artistic rhythmic sense. So for your older beginners who get what it is to move their hands, you're not training fine motor skills, they've already figured that out by this stage. They're still working out where to play on the piano. So to play along with them helps them to take their time and move to that next chord, but playing a duet kind of prompts them towards that space. Plus, don't forget how much playing along with the student allows them to borrow your confidence. That right there is huge. So step 1 in teaching older beginners, play duets, as I would recommend for everybody. I highly recommend using the easy demos of all of the stories to practice as a teacher how it feels to play along with a real human being. Instead of playing along with a track, a click track, and everything all being very clinical, playing along with somebody who uses nuance, who uses some beautiful rubato in their playing, it really helps us as teachers train ourselves to play along any student's duet. I would recommend that in your training of yourself as a teacher that you just stick to the easy demos. They're easier to follow, they're just easier to play with because they're kind of cut down, there's not too much going on. So let's have a bit of a play and just give you an idea of how I'm going to work with my student. Keeping it really simple.
continuing along those same lines. Now, what you'll notice in me doing that is that, you know, this is another human being playing, and they're playing their own musical sense. And as a teacher, this being my student, I have to learn to really play in sympathy with my student. I always like to say to them, you know, in music, we change chord on the downbeat, on the heavy beat. And so I'm always emphasizing that heavy beat so that they get a sense of where a chord would most naturally change. Sometimes students find that a real challenge. So playing duets always helps with that. So you're going to give them a heads up as to when you're going to change chords. So you'll be playing your little accompaniment down here. And at the right time, you're going to say, let's get ready. You're going to go to the F chord. Are you ready? Let's go. And off they go. That gives them time. And try not to pause too much. A little rubato. Here we go. We're going to the G. And off we go. That's fine. But you want them to have that sense of rhythm and changing chords fluently.
So, what do you think? I need some little hand buttons there. Oh, have I? Yeah, I'm not muted. That's all right, good. So, yeah, please come and join me in the chat room. Just push that little hand button and we'll send you a couple of things to check your system, make sure your mic works and everything, and come and join us. It's pretty cool. But yeah, this whole idea of playing alongside our students in a duet situation is incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. We get a sense, or we hand over a sense to our students of this musical flow and continuity with music that when we're learning by ourselves, we often don't get to experience that. And it's a really big thing. We were having a chat actually on the InnerMusician teacher chat book at Facebook yesterday. I think it was Heidi. I can't remember if Heidi's joined us or not. I think she has. I think I saw her name here somewhere. But we chatted about her situation where she had a little girl who wanted to sort of do her own thing and kept wanting to go off on her own journey. And when the teacher when Heidi brought in this idea of playing alongside her, a whole lot of issues melted away. And it's true, we really get to share music in a very special way. Oh, there's Heidi just jumped in. Hey Heidi, just talking about you, girl. So we were just chatting about the Facebook entry, the conversation that we had yesterday. It's really powerful to play along with both your young beginners, your older beginners, and your advanced students. And swap parts, you know, this idea of a duet being either teacher-led or student-led. Certainly with your advanced students, you're going to swap over sides all the time. It's going to be really, really fun. But you want to be able to, with your young beginners, do some of the leading. So that idea of giving them enough heads up to know when to change the chord, that's pretty important because you don't want them floundering. You know, part of the purpose of playing duets is that they really get confident and they start to embrace music and they take away the stress and the worry of this blank canvas and I'm the only one playing. That's a really intimidating situation to be in. So it's really good to play duets. It does take away that intimidation, that artist's fear of the blank canvas. So let's now keep going. Let's have a look at another duet idea. This one I thought I would just put in because I think it's kind of fun and it might just get your ideas thinking along the lines of creating a looping chord progression, like a 4-chord progression. So let's go and have another look at another video that I did yesterday in the studio that shows the Zeppelin. So this is your first one. Now I'm not suggesting necessarily, in fact I'm not suggesting that you use this on your very first lesson where they're playing the pentatonic, because I'm actually going to introduce using a key signature of G flat. So we're going to start using white notes. Certainly on that first lesson, we want to play all on black notes so that they can kind of look and go, oh, look, they're all black. Yeah, we're all good. Right? But further down the track, as we're working with older beginners, we're working with advanced students. This is something that could be kind of fun for you to try out. Let's go check it out.
We're going to have a look at accompanying your advanced students with the scene of the Zephyr-Wind, because there's something really fun you can do with this one. So your duet student is going to play on the pentatonic, so all black notes, but if you center your accompaniment on G flat, which has mostly black notes in it, then what I'm going to suggest is don't be afraid to add the C flat that belongs to the G flat scale, and also the F note that belongs to that, because it does create a little more freedom for you as an accompanist. And then see if they notice. If they're an advanced student, they'll go, ah, I just see what you did. And then you can hand that over to them and say, yeah, so with the pentatonic, it's playing the key of G flat, and we're going to use the C flat and the F as part of our improvisation. In other words, we're now using a whole scale improv. But it's still nice because it kind of feels like pentatonic. So if you have a student who's just playing black notes, right hand, or at least on the top, and they're going anywhere, not just using that G flat as your bass, a nice way to accompany them is just to simply use that chord progression, a descending chord progression, so G flat, to play while they're on the pentatonic at the top there. Don't forget too, you can change your rhythm. So, you know, maybe you're going to have that fantastic, let's say this, 1, 2, beautiful, love that. Moves it into quite a different place, of course, using your 3/4 as well as a nice idea as well.
Alrighty, guys, what did you think? So I use that all the time. In actual fact, a lot of my students, you know, when they're having an off day and just kind of, you know, maybe they haven't practiced much, maybe it's been something happening during the week, and we all have those. Often it's just nice to sit down with them and just go, hey, let's paint out for a while. Thank you, Irene. She says, beautiful. It's a really fun thing, and it's a beautiful space, actually. It's a very musical space. And again, with your more advanced students, swap it over. Make sure you keep swapping over. With this duet idea, we can just get a great depth of playing. So, Shamara, you've said, can you repeat the chord progression? Sure, it's just... let me see if I can remember. That's just a G flat chord, and then it's the descending bass, so the bass is moving down to F, while the right hand, I believe, is playing a B flat, I think. Let me just check on that. So you've got, first of all, your G flat, and then an inversion of the B flat chord, followed by an E flat minor, and then finished with your B flat. But recheck out that video if I've made a mistake there. I've just done it really quickly off the top of my head. But yeah, a really nice place. And don't forget that when you add that white note in that chord progression, when you're teaching your advanced students, help them understand, why do we use these chords? Why is it a minor once we start to get down to the E flat? Why do we have to do that to stay in key? And also when they're improvising on the right hand, if you're playing the accompaniment left hand, what notes are we going to use? How come we can now use two white notes? And why is it called not a, let me see, so if we were working in the key of G flat, why do we not call that white note a B? You know, why do we call it the C flat? So it's a kind of an interesting, you know, conversation to have. Okay, so if we then continue to our slides and keep ourselves on track, let's just have a look at our next point there, next couple of points. So here we've got the next point, which is our root chords. So with an older beginner, I'm going to suggest that we don't really look at the whole conversation of inversions yet. We really need to get the idea of those chords happening. And I'm not here now talking about the Zeppelin and the G flat. I'm talking about, say, Morning Song. You know, that's one or two or three lessons in, and they're already now building up their knowledge of their C chord, their F chord and their G chord. And not very further down the track, we're introducing the A minor and the D minor through several of these scenes. So once we've finished Zeppelin, we've got a really good grasp on those chords. And with the older beginners, I'm going to suggest to you that you leave them in their root positions. But in introducing broken chords, what we're really doing is mapping out the notes that belong to those chords. Thus, we're actually now creating a foundation for inversions, because if they're playing around the chord notes, then they're also getting the idea that you can switch around the order of the chord notes. And that's what inversions is all about, really, in its essence. So with our older beginners, we're certainly not going into inversions. We're going to stick with root position, but learning how to break them up, which is what we do with our little tiny youngsters as well. So no real difference there. Don't be tempted just because they're older to introduce a whole lot of stuff, because you get overwhelmed really quickly. And we get tempted because we think, oh, look, I'm talking to an adult or a young go-get-em teenager, and they want information. But really what they want is the experience of having a limited palette and doing something phenomenal with it, and then just gradually introducing those new concepts. So keep it safe, guys. Don't get them to a point where they just go, oh, you know what? I knew I was no good at this. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to play basketball instead. Don't do that. All right. So let's now keep going. Let's talk. So we've talked a little bit about the duetting on the older beginner side. We've talked about playing a kind of a chordal accompaniment. Now I want to delve into what can we do with our students, our beginners, our older beginners, and yes, our tiny beginners in little embryonic form. Some extra ideas that we can do with right hand improvisation. So let's go check out a little demonstration of what I'm talking about here. Sorry, I think I've given you the wrong one there. Let me just do that again. There we go. That's better. Here we go.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about in this one is just using right hand and getting our students to improvise in the right hand. Of course, this isn't just for older beginners, but seeing as though that's the topic of conversation, so many things that you teach to your older beginnings are just the same as your younger beginners. Let's face it, they're all learning to play the piano, but your older beginners are going to get their fine motor skills much quicker, so you're going to spend less time on that. And technique, they're going to be able to probably follow quite quickly, although not always so. All right, so let's have a look at the pollen dance for this one. So you can either use a pentascale, which is just the first five notes in the scale, in C. That sounds great. Or maybe on another week you might teach your student how to use the pentatonic scale, which is always just using all of the notes of those five first notes except for finger 4, the sort of fourth interval, and instead add the sixth interval. So in the key of C, the pentascale would simply be 1, 2, 3, C, D, E, G, A with finger 4 and 5. So it's really easy to teach. You can get that in your hands really quickly. I'm going to kind of mess around during this particular right hand improv. Sometimes I'm going to use the pentascale and I'll change from chord to chord. Sometimes I'll just sit on a C pentatonic. We'll see how it goes. So I'm going to start on a pentascale on C. Now I'm going to use the pentatonic. So that's just to give you a bit of a feel of what it's like to have students doing 3 versions of that right-hand improv. And of course, you're not going to get them to do a mashup of that. So one week you'll just have, all right, we're only doing the pentatonic on C for the entire song. Maybe that's your first bass because it sounds good and they don't have to be moving around. And of course, you're playing the accompaniment in the left hand. And then maybe the next week they'll come in and we'll give them the pentascale changing on every chord change. So that would be the second thing, is to change chords using the pentascale. And then that third option that I just had a bit of a muck around with is just using a couple of thirds as you move through those pentascales. It's a really nice thing and it's a quick victory. It makes them feel like, oh my goodness, that was really complex harmony, and it's an all good thing. So inspiring your students by having them, even if they're just playing one-handed, to give them duet material in the background to keep going. Then I would even send them home and say, okay, use the easy demonstration on the scene and I want you to pent out. So maybe each day you'll choose a new way of using either the pentascale or the pentatonic to just improvise on the right hand, because that's exactly what I did here with you today. So keep remembering, for all of your older beginners, those easy demonstrations are great for you to train as a teacher in, but really great to send your students home to play along with as well. There is an extra skill involved there because they have to predict what's happening and keep with the rhythm. So, you know, perhaps that one is a more advanced student option for you.
Cool. What do you think? It's kind of fun. Pent out. Woo woo. So yeah, okay, cool. Bam. So I learned that little term. I have to give credit where credit's due to Bradley Zolosh, of course, who's this fantastic improv guru of all sorts of genres. But yeah, he used to say, when in doubt, pent out. And really fun. Oh, good, Teresa. I'm glad that you enjoyed that and got something out of it. And Irini too. Isn't it good to learn new things? I agree, 100%. That's why I'd love you guys to just bam, bam, on the hand. Come and join me. It'd be really cool. All right, so hopefully, you know, in giving these little prepared earlier in the kitchen video demonstrations, kind of just gives you a nice succinct, you know, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is, and it's easier, you know, I'm talking with my hands all the time. I may as well be putting them on the piano and talking with my hands, right? Okay, so let's keep moving forward. Now, look, on that same slide, we had left-hand patterns for your older beginners. So we're going to kind of tease that out a little bit further at the end of our webinar today in the experienced beginners, but do know that you can also bring in left-hand patterns into your older beginners. Did I say experienced beginners? I think I did. Yeah, good. There you go. Our experienced students, but you can also use left-hand patterns, really basic left-hand patterns with your older beginners. And you could even bring those in at an earlier stage because, as we've talked about, you know, we're not really having to get older students to figure out how do they move finger 3 and not finger 1, 2 and 4 all at the same time. They've got those fine motor skills pretty much developed through life, and we can move further onto developing the coordination aspects of playing. And so, you know, we don't have to wait, for example, till we get to treble notes when we're doing the letter and we're doing the Alberti bass to bring that in and say, hey, you're doing this morning song improv on all 3 chords so well, it sounds so great. Hey, let's figure out a new way, let's figure out some patterns to play, and you can be the duet in the lower part of the piano. I'm going to improv right hand, but, you know, what can you do here? And what you'll actually find is they'll accidentally hit on the Alberti or some form of Alberti-ishness, whether it be, you know, sort of bottom, top, middle, top, you know, it might be bottom, middle, top, middle, bottom, middle, top, and that's where they'll often go straight away. So encourage that and explore that. That's what improvisation's all about. So there's another little subtitle on that slide that I had of hands together, and if you're going to encourage your students to start playing left hand patterns and then penting out, so creating their own little melodies, you definitely want to start on the beat. So every right hand lands with the left hand, and that's definitely going to be the best way to give them a comfortable experience of doing a right-handed melodic improvisation while they're doing patterns or even just chords. And then start to double up that. So now you're going to introduce, you know, a right hand, a together, right, etc. So you bring in those very gently, but certainly to start with your older beginners, because they're still beginners, on the beat. It's going to work for them. Let's keep moving forward. Let's have a look at our next topic of conversation. And I mean, we could stay on older beginners for a long time because it's kind of an interesting thing, and we might even in the future do webinars where we just pull apart one of these ideas or a couple of these ideas. But let's go ahead now and have a look at our more experienced players. So the first thing we're going to look at is, again, we're going to go back to duets. We've just done melodic improvisation for our older beginners. Let's now have a look. What can we do with our more experienced students in the whole realm of duets? So you playing an accompaniment and them playing a right hand improvisation over the top. So here's something I prepared earlier. Let's have a look.
Just have a chat about what I've written down there. Steps, leaps, counter melodies, octaves, phrasing. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of stuff there. You guys know what these terms are because you're teachers, but obviously those steps, so like a scalar passage type of improv. So if you're in the key of A minor, so mostly using just steps, and then of course little skips as well, so thirds in there. But also incorporating leaps into that picture. And so melodies, the most common melodies have a lot of steps and skips and just a few leaps as they bring in that sort of emotional leap. Of the two in the melody, and also having octaves and really spelling out a moment during that improv. And remembering that if you fall on the wrong note, you just got to switch either side of it and you can generally be okay. And that's the beauty of playing in A minor, because all the white notes are pretty much really nice. Phrasing, so not just sitting there and take it with notes, full on non-stop. Using that idea of asking your student to physically breathe as they play, as if their notes are being played using their breath. So really thinking about communicating each of those phrases as if you were talking. That's what music is. So using that idea of playing over the top. So if we now have a look at this, and we're just going to move in these chord progressions, so the two A minor and D minor. Let's see what a student might do over the top of this. Observation with that one. Do you just love that ending chord there? But some of these advanced improvs, you'll notice that they don't just go back to the reposition, to the root chord. They go and land somewhere in the fifth, or somewhere in the sixth, or in the fourth, or like really beautiful, suspenseful endings. Very beautiful. Love it.
Yeah, so here we are. We've always talked about you start at home and you go on your little improv journey and you always come home. Everybody wants to come home. But what if you're an adventure seeker and you want to stay out a little while and you want to book that one distance travel ticket, not a return trip? I don't know. What do you think? It's just not always having to go to the tonic, it's kind of, well, there it is. That's a really interesting thing to give to your advanced students, because they can explore that realm. And you don't want to give that to your beginners, younger or older. We're trying to establish the typical form of music, which on the whole goes home. So it's a good thing, right? We all do like to go home eventually. All right, so what do you reckon, guys? Please make the most of this resource of particularly those advanced videos, those advanced demos. They're gold in your own training as you develop your sense of flow, your sense of comfort in working with the motifs there as well. So yeah, use them and send your students home and have them experiment with them. And as I said earlier in one of the videos, some work better than others. Okay, I get that. But yeah, experiment. figure it out. Which ones do work? Which ones do you connect with? I'm, a bit of a heart song girl, so heart song does it to me every time. I love that one. So Teresa, these are so captivating. Wonderful glow on unsuspecting student face. Right, exactly. Can you imagine just being able to sit there and just working with those students and experiencing music, as I said in that very first slide, that look of pure creative expression. It never fades. Truly, it's one of the gold in what we teach. Alrighty, so let's just skip out again and have a look at the other points on our journey here, talking about those experienced players. And let's skip a couple of these through fairly quickly, because then I want to give you another quick video of teasing one of those out. So our second step there is again duets, and here, as I said before, now we're talking about our experienced players. So yes, chords, oh my goodness, they need inversions. Inversions are just beautiful. Those inversions, you want your students to find them very quickly across the piano. So playing beautiful arpeggiatic type of arrangements for improv. So come up with their own chord progression, create inversions of them using arpeggios, or block the chords up and down the piano, but musically, right? These are not exercises. They're not skills that we just drill and drill. Everything I want my students to do, I want them to do musically. Adding extensions in there of your sus chords and your sevenths and your ninths. These are really easy to teach. Hey, in a root position, our sus chord is always the fourth or the second. We can have that second being a suspended, moving and resolving into that third. Adding sevenths, dropping your thumb down a full step for a seventh or a major seventh with just a half step, awesome. Or hugging your tonic, which is hugging your note, your root note on your chord to give you your ninth. So stepping down with your thumb a full step to get the seventh, and then also taking, going up a full step from the tonic note or the root note to get your ninth. So I always talk to my students about finding their ninth by hugging the root note. And of course exploring new rhythms. That's a whole topic, right? And we'll touch on that a little bit as we go into our next little video. Let's have a look at the duets, exchanging the lead player. So we've touched on this again a little bit, but with your experienced players, my goodness, this is so good to do. Exchange the lead player, exchange who plays on the bottom, who plays on the top. Generally, I find that whoever plays on the bottom is really the leader. And by the way, as far as pedaling goes, it's kind of pretty much decided in the universe that the person that's playing to the left of middle C has control of that pedal. And I would say that that's because if you're playing in that realm, the pedal is more important to make sure that it's not becoming muddy, and also you're kind of generating the chord and the bass lead line in the piece, so you want to use your pedal there. So just a little thing there for you to think about. The advanced demos, we've talked about that and how we really should be using these to play along with. We've talked about a lot about duet, but now let's have a look at it in the sense of using those advanced demos to really observe, describe what we're observing, and then incorporating those ideas into our playing. So right now, I want to jump you into a little video that takes one of our early scenes, takes Morning Song, in the advanced demo version. So we've got the full C, F and G established, we're ready to go, and these are your advanced students. And let's just have a little sneak peek as to what could happen in your studio as you explore this new ideas in observation.
So now we're going to talk a little bit more about what we can do, what the possibilities are for our more experienced players, and as we'll talk a little bit more in this webinar, what we're going to be discussing is just because a student can play magnificent Chopin pieces doesn't necessarily mean that they know and are comfortable in the arena of improvisation. So one of the most obvious things that we can do as a teacher for those advanced students who really do understand more theory about music and what's actually happening when they observe is to give them the advanced demonstration down here at the bottom in order to have them actually observe what's happening. So this is what I might do with a student initially as just a place of sitting and listening and watching and using their skills of understanding and assimilating new things into their playing. Don't want it to be just head knowledge. I want them to actually go, oh, I can see what you did there. I'm going to do that. So these are great for material for you to do that with them. So not playing, just watching. So I love how simple this is, that is just using that fifth in the right hand and nothing else, and keeping it really open. And did you see that? So nothing's changed, the C is still on the bottom, but is using the F there, so a suspended chord into that C. And then adding rhythm. So already with that pulsing, it's being developed, and that's a great take home. A little glissando, there's another one. Starting in a higher octave and then building up to the lower octave that gives you that next layer of depth. Next layer of depth. So let me just pause it there. So having those very quick observations with your students sitting there, getting them, drawing them out, and even pausing and saying, so what can you tell me compositionally about this? How's he built this piece up? What little tricks has he used in order to create a progression through the music? And so just in the first few bars, we've already got all of this material for a student to go home and try. So I highly recommend getting into these advanced demos for observation. I'm asking my advanced students to go home, observe, grab 3 ideas and incorporate them. And that's usually a lot. So yeah, there's a lot of work that can be done with your advanced students.
Alrighty, lots of work. Too much work, right? I mean, that could take you a lesson all on its own for the next few years to just really extract musical examples from other artists playing. There's just a question here from Mary. Hi, Mary. Welcome. You know what? When you have a look at your journey layout, where you've got all the movies at the top, and all the stories at the top and all the movies at the bottom, what you'll find on the end of each of those rows are some little tiny miniature keyboards. So up in the story row, the top row, I think there's just 3 little keys or something. That's the easy demos. So that's what we were talking about right at the very beginning of the webinar today, that those easy demos are perfect for us as teachers to train ourselves on playing along with the student as they change chords and as they move through their improv. That's a great training place for you. And then at the very bottom, you'll see the basic demos, but also you'll see the advanced demos. So you just get more keys on the keyboard in the little emblem, but it's right there. Check it out. They are really useful for training yourself, but also for sending home to your students to observe and take out what they can find and bring it back to you the following week. Alrighty, how are we going? This is awesome. We've got to kind of move forward pretty quickly now. And so our very last video that I want to show you is on that more experienced player slide, and that is observing musical styles. Now, this video is something I did in a workshop a little while ago, and we have literally got just enough time to run that video. So that means I'm not going to have time to go on to our next conversation topic, which was going beyond your own skill set in improvisation. What a great topic. Some kind of psychological stuff in there, right? How do you get beyond your own sense of limitations or self-doubt even, especially because it's such a creative field, and then also to be able to tell you what we're working on at the moment. So we're just going to have to do another webinar, right? Yay, we'll see you again. But before we do, let's go and have a look at this totally out there idea. So much fun on this, so you can't go today without watching this. Check it out. Advanced students only, warning.
So now I want to talk to you about what I mean by observing musical styles. And I'll try and do this fairly quickly, but this is too much fun, let me just say. So this is where I love to integrate pieces that your students might be already working on, because you don't have time if you categorize every single thing, you know, a reading piece, a technique exercise, an improvisation piece, an accompaniment piece. You're not going to get it all in because we've got such limited time. So we want to cross over. So I say have a student who's working on a soundtrack for Pride and Prejudice. And so there's this beautiful piece in there. It's called The Living Sculptures of Pemberley. And while I'm not going to play the piece because that's not my point here, what I want to do is have my student observe some stylistic playing out of that and see if we can't adopt that into moving entirely away from that piece but using the same feel and style. So if we have a look at it, this piece has this left hand happening while the right hand plays very sparse notes, and it's just gorgeous. So it goes something like this. Just these thirds moving into fourths, just one note stepping out of that beautiful, fairly close harmony. So could we use this in our own improvisation? Well, absolutely. So this is in the key of B flat. You can either stay in the key, but sometimes you're tempted to just, especially if your students now perfected this piece, they're going to just play it over and over and they're going to find it difficult to separate out. So change the key if you want to. For your students, so maybe even pop it into the pentatonic, so into the G flat, and have them play at the same tempo and adopting that same style, so perhaps something like this. See that idea of keeping to the same rhythm, the same style, but adapting it. Okay, so I've just flipped through and this is the Arrival at Netherfield. Again, a beautiful piece, a fairly sparse right hand, which is kind of nice if you're going to improvise because it's easy to keep it sparse to start with. But again, adopting the style that the student might be already doing of using your split octave, so your fifth in the middle, and then coming up to a 10th and a 9th with your thumb. So this sort of idea. And I've edited it. I'm just saying, hey, there's a style, let's grab it. So something like this is used here. And it just stays on that F for ages. I've placed it on the piano and now it's all mine, my own story to tell. So there's some beautiful pieces in there that are quite stylistic in their patterns and shapes and rhythmic forms. I'm going to presume everybody's got something like this, an easy classic, piano classics kind of book. Now, sometimes I don't like the easy in front of these because the arrangements can be compromised quite badly, but this is actually a really nice one. Even if your student's on an advanced piece and they're, you know, doing proper full-on classical music, the idea is still to capture the simplistic style of a piece. So, for example, the Moonlight Sonata, everybody knows it, and it has this beautiful, minimal harmonic movement, and often a downward movement. So let's say your student's playing this and they're just absolutely gorgeous, just moving it through. And again, just using that easy version to really see what's happening. C sharp. Every student does that, so I did that so you would understand that I'm totally expecting that to happen. Okay, so now what are we going to do with this? Again, shift it out of its key. Do not play it in this key because it will sound like Moonlight Sonata all the time. They'll just keep going back to it if they're already familiar with it. So again, let's shoot it out. Let's put it in the pentatonic. And I'm not saying do this for every one of them, but it's just kind of a fun way to get launched outside the key because it's all black, which is nice. Again, I'm going to start on G flat, so I've got that idea in my head of keeping in that mode. So I'm just going to use that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and very minimal shifting, and just a downward shift in my left hand. Fun to play, and you would not think that was anything like Moonlight Sonata. So it might be Moonlight over the pentatonic or some such gorgeous thing. Hungarian dance, totally switch up the rhythms and the styles that the students are finding. So, you know, this is a typical so that kind of idea of the leaping right hand and then the left hand coming in to just muck around. So good idea to stick with it like an this is written in A minor actually, so let's stay there with an A minor. So here we go. Such a good grasp on an entirely different style of playing. Let me show you one that's tricky, but I do love it, and that's the Gollywog's Cakewalk, right, by Debussy. I happen to love Debussy because he's such a mood creator, which is what we're all about. This one takes a little bit to get used to if your students haven't done this sort of style, but just that beautiful, that terrible rendition of it, but the idea is to just get it in your hands and then do their own thing. So I'm actually going to stay on the F. I like the F there. So here we go. I don't know.
Little delicate. Alrighty, look, who is that woman? Okay, so look, I hope you've had a ball. I hope you've really just expanded your horizons just a little bit. I've certainly had fun talking with you guys and getting some interesting conversation over there in the chat box there. I love that conversation about the B or the C flat. Hope I haven't thrown too many, wobblies in the universe of musical theory. But yeah, my students quicker at picking up a B chord than a C flat chord. But yes, they're advanced students, right? Make sure they understand and tell them you must use C flat, right? Thanks, Dale, for that contribution there and little, yeah, nutty things going on. It's awesome. All right, look, as I said, we've run over. We're like 2 minutes over. Oh, my goodness, I'm so sorry. But we are working on amazing stuff at the moment. We're doing some really fun stuff as far as accompaniment, right? This whole idea of duets, well, to actually have amazing experiences playing piano in an orchestra. It's what I've always wanted to do. And you know what? This whole program is not about you. It's about me. I just want to fulfill my dreams of playing in all of these fantastic, beautiful environments. Love it. I love that you love it, Diana. That's awesome with the style of the piece. It's really fun. Thank you, Sandy. I'm so glad that we hit the spot today. Awesome. Thank you, Shamara. Thanks, Kurt. Dale, love you. Awesome. I love you guys all chatting. We'll do this again. We'll take up the next half of these slides and we'll experiment. We'll get into it. We'll chat. Love you guys. Till next time. Where's my remote?